So my wife is on me to fix this broken air conditioning unit, but I really want to make a microscope. So I'm gonna make a microscope. Maybe later we can look at that AC unit. Because there's an entire teeny tiny world around us completely invisible to the human eye, and I want to see it for myself. So today, I'm gonna massively over-engineer a giant microscope attachment for my camera. Basically, if you move a camera lens further away from the camera's sensor, it magnifies the image. Even this tiny spacer lets me get insanely close to things. So I started wondering, what would happen if I moved the lens really, really, really far away? Which meant I needed an absolutely ridiculous pipe. I'm a bit embarrassed, but this is the biggest pipe I have at home. I don't have the confidence to make a build with a pipe of this size, if you know what I mean. So I set out to find a real pipe. One even my wife would be proud of. And after searching Facebook Marketplace for months, I finally found it. I drove over an hour to pick this thing up. The Facebook seller actually had to cut the pipe because it wouldn't fit in my car, but I was able to fit about 7 feet. So let's build a giant microscope. Now, the seller told me this pipe was perfectly round, but before designing any components, I wanted to form a second opinion. Yep, it's round. First, I designed this plate that is exactly the diameter of the pipe. It conveniently fits on my camera lens and allows me to basically take photos without revealing my identity.
Yo, who is that guy?
This will completely block stray light out of the camera's end of the tube, hopefully. Then I designed another plate that bolts into the front of the tube. I made this one the same mount as my camera, so I can basically use any lens I have. There's just one issue. When you move a lens nearly 7 feet away from your camera, it gets pretty dark. It's like standing way back in your yard with a light versus right in your face. So I added these mounts for these little lights that Small Rig sent me. And I went with these lights because they're battery powered and have adjustable intensity. And I have no clue if they'll make enough difference or not, but we'll see. Next, I painted the inside of the tube black. This was actually a lot harder than I had thought it would be. My arm would only fit so far on either side of the tube. So I spray painted a cloth and stuffed that in there to the best of my ability. It's like I was stuffing a cannon in the Civil War or something. At this point, I needed some screws and bolts to secure the parts to the pipe, so I thought I'd stop by the hardware store in my town. The economy must have been pretty hard, and unfortunately, they're out of wear. So I had to go to a second hardware store to get my nuts and screws. Now, I thought the pipe would be dry by the time I got home, but boy was I wrong.
Oh yeah, this is still wet.
So I gave the pipe some sun. I could use some myself. Now that the pipe is dry, we can assemble it. Assembly is pretty straightforward. I 3D printed this little jig that lines up the holes for the front plate, but it was actually harder than I anticipated, and as you can see, I made a mistake, like right there. For the back, I had to take a round face and make it flat. So I 3D printed this piece, and I'm gonna use this quick release plate to mount the camera, but I needed some space, so I added these wooden plates. It's kind of clunky to get my camera in there, so I might just leave it in there permanently. Everyone needs a microscope, right? Now, all we have left to do is test it and see if it works.
All right, we just have one problem.
So originally I wanted to use this 90mm lens. It's basically like a short telephoto, and I figured it would be perfect for the build, but when I mounted it up and looked through the pipe, this is the image it produced. See that tiny bright dot in the middle? That's the microscope image.
I was kind of hoping it would be bigger than that. And now we need a lens that has a lot more zoom.
The good news is, I do have one lens that might work. The bad news is, it's completely ridiculous. I also have light leaks on the outside of my front plate. I need to seal those up, if possible. Obviously, some tape will probably fix that. I 3D printed a new ring for the new lens, and I actually 3D printed a lot of these useless rings. I wasted a lot of filament on this project, but I think I found a use for the unneeded discs. Dang it! So let's test the new lens with my new setup and see how it is. I don't know about you, but I hate tearing things apart to rebuild them. Like, why didn't my first design work? Fortunately, I don't have to engineer anything. This lines up pretty well. Oh, and I actually finally decided to secure the pipe down to the ladder, which makes sense because I have a camera and super telephoto lens just dangling off the back of it. But, you know, nothing bad's gonna happen. Okay, so I just need to figure out focusing and taking the pictures so you can see them. I ran this really long HDMI cord for this little monitor so I can confirm focus, and this remote shutter for capturing the pictures. After trying a bunch of different lens combinations, I landed on this 55mm lens, backwards. Nailing focus is very challenging, but if you can, the image is very cool. And disclaimer, I'll be the first person to say that this is extremely ridiculous and my design/execution is wildly impractical. Because having to reach over the body of the lens to take your photo makes it harder to hold your other hand still. The placement of my lights is not really ideal either, and the fact that they're all independently powered is kind of challenging. So they run out of battery independently and need charged independently, mainly by my awesome iPad charger. But I can't charge my iPad if I'm charging my lights independently.
Oh, my iPad died.
When I was looking at the photos outside of my garage, they seemed unimpressive.
This seems unimpressive.
But when I cropped them and reviewed them in a group, I was kind of blown away. So I present to you gross things I found in my garage. First off, this is my fingerprint. So if I commit a crime, part of my print lives on the internet. But I'm not gonna tell you which finger it is. These are both shots of a leaf that I found on the floor of my garage. You can see that different parts of the leaf are in focus for each image. This is a splinter that I found on the floor. I love how you can see each fiber. I now understand why it's hard to get splinters out. Even if you get the main part out, look at all the supporting ouchies. This is condensation from a plastic bottle. That white line is the bottom of the label. Unfortunately, I'm not zoomed enough to look at all the microplastics I was drinking, but you know, maybe one day. A dead ant that I found on one of my camera lenses. This was one of the really, really tiny ants too, not the freaky ones you see in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Close-up text from one of my actual lenses. Guess which one you think it's from in the comments. The winner gets an all-expenses-paid trip to North Korea. Just kidding. These are fibers from the microfiber cloth that I violated earlier in the video. The black part is black paint. Plastic from when I was drilling out the pipe. I actually love the results of it. Very abstract, art-esque.
Okay, $5,000 or a new air conditioning unit. It's a good deal.
The tip of a box cutter. It's funny because you look at these and go, yeah, this looks sharp and can cut. But at 6 times magnification, you go,
your blade will not kill.
This is part of a zip tie I had on the shelf in my garage, and I think that is a bug. And I'm a little bit concerned about this image too because earlier I had that zip tie in my mouth. And lastly, these are photos from a flower I picked in the garden. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. So now that I've finished my microscope, I need to try and fix my air conditioner. So I have a theory. See, it fell out my window once, and now when I plug it in, it barely makes any noise. So if I drop it again, but on the other side, maybe the energy will the inside and fix it.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. If you want to see more videos like this, then consider joining my membership because it supports the nonsense you see here. And as always, peace. I dropped it on the wrong side.